CNN should be ashamed of itself having you working for them. You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working for CNN. Go ahead.
They're testing. There's no state right now in the United States that's tested really less than 1%, which is pretty remarkable when they don't really have significant.
Remember when presidents used to answer questions without having a meltdown? Yeah, me neither. Trump just went full toddler mode on a CNN reporter who dared to ask about COVID testing, and the entire room couldn't hold back their laughter.
The White House said the U.S. passes South Korea in virus testing.
Who are you with?
Yahoo News, and it's not true per capita.
Do you want to respond to that? If you have the number.
In this video, we'll break down exactly how Trump turned a simple press conference into his own awkward comedy special. Spoiler alert, he claims CNN won't survive because of their ratings, while proving exactly why they keep covering him. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great! Thank you so much. Now, back to the video. Ever notice how Trump has this weird obsession with TV ratings? It's like his security blanket whenever a reporter asks him something he can't answer. And nobody gets this treatment more than CNN. Trump's relationship with CNN is about as friendly as a cat in a bathtub. He just can't stand them. Remember all those times he's called them failing CNN or CNN fake news? He treats network ratings like they're presidential approval numbers. Whenever he's backed into a corner, suddenly he's all, "Your ratings are terrible," instead of actually answering the question. It's his favorite escape hatch. So, here's what happened in this press briefing. A CNN reporter had the audacity to ask Trump about COVID testing numbers, specifically comparing South Korea's testing per capita to the US. Pretty straightforward question, right? But our orange in chief doesn't do well with facts that make him look bad. At first, Trump tries to play it cool. "I don't think that's true," he says, looking around the room like he's expecting someone to back him up. But nobody jumps in to save him because, well, the reporter had actual numbers. South Korea was testing way more people per capita than the US was.
President, overall, South Korea has done 5 times more tests than the U.S. per capita. Why is that?
I don't think that's true.
That is true, and you said this morning that...
Facts are stubborn things. You can literally see the moment Trump realizes he can't BS his way out of this one. His face does this thing where it gets all pinched, like he just bit into a lemon. The reporter keeps pressing with more specific numbers, and Trump starts doing that weird fidgety thing with his hands. You know the one, where he makes those little circles in the air like he's trying to hypnotize everyone into forgetting the question. The best part is watching his body language shift. He starts out all puffed up, shoulders back, chin jutting out. Typical Trump power pose. But as the reporter continues fact-checking him in real time, he starts to deflate like a sad balloon. His shoulders hunch forward, he starts gripping the podium tighter, and his eyes dart around looking for an escape route. And then comes the color change. Trump's face gets redder and redder as the exchange goes on. It's like watching a stoplight go from yellow to red, a warning that an explosion is imminent. The more the reporter persists with accurate information, the more flushed Trump becomes. His face is practically glowing at this point, almost matching his signature tie. This is when Trump realizes he can't win on facts. He can't dispute the numbers because they're, actual numbers. So what does he do? What he always does, he attacks the messenger. That's why CNN's ratings are so bad. He sputters, completely abandoning any pretense of answering the actual question.
Get a question.
Mr. President-elect, can you give us a question?
Don't be
You're
rude.
attacking us. Can you give us a question?
Don't be rude.
Can you give us a question?
I'm not going to give you a question.
The whole room reacts at this point. But here's the thing, they're not laughing with Trump. They're laughing at him. Because it's so painfully obvious what he's doing. It's like watching a kid get caught with his hand in the cookie jar and then trying to blame the jar. Everyone sees right through it. So did Trump actually humiliate the CNN reporter, as the clickbait title suggests? Not even close. He humiliated himself by showing that he had no substantive response to a basic factual question. Instead of addressing COVID testing, the thing that might have helped save American lives during a pandemic, he went for a cheap shot about TV ratings. Real presidential stuff. The reporter just stands there, microphone still in hand, probably thinking what we're all thinking. Did the President of the United States really just respond to a public health question with a comment about Nielsen ratings? Yes, yes, he did. That Nielsen ratings comeback was just Trump's opening act of childish behavior.
Same thing in the United States. So if you look at every single state that had an outbreak, their testing is greater than anywhere in the world. They're in the
What follows next is a masterclass in presidential meltdowns, the kind that would get a 5-year-old sent to timeout, but somehow was acceptable in the White House briefing room. As the facts about COVID testing continued to corner him, Trump didn't just attack CNN as an institution. He went full mean girl on the reporter personally. "That's why you're with Yahoo and nobody knows who you are," he snapped, essentially pulling the political equivalent of "you can't sit with us" from Mean Girls. The commander-in-chief transformed into the commander-in-petty right before our eyes. What's remarkable here isn't just Trump's kindergarten comeback. It's the stark contrast with the reporter's reaction. While Trump was having his public tantrum, the journalist maintained complete composure. No eye-rolling, no visible frustration, just continued professionalism as they tried steering the conversation back to, the actual pandemic killing Americans. It was like watching a patient teacher deal with a class troublemaker, except the troublemaker was supposedly running the country. The room's reaction tells you everything you need to know about how this exchange was perceived. Other journalists visibly cringed as Trump launched into personal territory. You could practically see the secondhand embarrassment washing over the room. Several reporters exchanged glances that screamed, "Is this really happening?" Spoiler alert, yes it was.
They're testing. There's no state right now in the United States that's tested really less than 1%, which is pretty remarkable when they don't really have significant.
Even more telling was the reaction from Trump's own team. White House officials standing in the background looked like they wanted to melt into the wallpaper. Their faces cycled through the 5 stages of PR grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and finally the acceptance that their boss was melting down on national television. Again. Then came the laughter. Not directed at the reporter being insulted, but at Trump himself. The room actually erupted in laughter at the absurdity of a president using "nobody knows who you are" as his devastating comeback. It was the kind of uncomfortable laughter that happens when something is so inappropriate you don't know how else to respond. Like when your drunk uncle starts telling inappropriate stories at Thanksgiving dinner. Body language experts would have a field day analyzing Trump during this exchange. As the reporter remained steady, Trump's posture became increasingly defensive. He crossed his arms tightly across his chest, the universal signal for "I'm feeling threatened." He leaned forward aggressively while interrupting, a classic domination tactic when someone feels their authority slipping. His finger-pointing increased with each question he couldn't properly answer. Communication experts note that this kind of behavior follows a predictable pattern. When someone lacks the facts to respond to a legitimate question, they typically resort to personal attacks as a deflection strategy. It's debate 101. If you can't attack the argument, attack the person. Trump wasn't just demonstrating this principle, he was giving a TED Talk on how to look completely unprepared on camera. The most revealing part of this entire exchange wasn't what Trump said, it was who maintained control. Despite being publicly insulted by the most powerful man in America, the reporter never lost their cool. They stayed focused on the facts, refused to take the bait, and demonstrated the kind of professionalism that made Trump's behavior look even more childish by comparison. The reporter won this exchange without even throwing a punch, simply by refusing to stoop to the playground level. By the end, Trump was visibly flustered, while the journalist remained composed. It was like watching a chess match, where one player was still setting up their pieces while the other declared checkmate. The reporter didn't need to own Trump. Trump was doing a perfect job of embarrassing himself without any assistance. Trump's meltdown with that reporter wasn't a random outburst. It was his signature move from a well-rehearsed playbook he's performed hundreds of times. The rude, terrible person routine became Trump's go-to whenever journalists dared to ask follow-up questions. It's like watching a toddler whose only defense is "I'm rubber, you're glue," except this toddler had nuclear codes. Let's cue up the Trump verses. Media Greatest Hits compilation, because this man has more reporter feuds than he has failed businesses. Remember when NBC's Peter Alexander asked what Trump would say to Americans who were scared during the pandemic? A softball question that any halfway decent leader could knock out of the park with some comforting words. But not our Donnie. Instead, he snarled, "I'd say you're a terrible reporter," then rambled about how nasty the question was. Apparently, asking the president to comfort terrified citizens during a global health crisis is now considered a hostile act. But the crown jewel in Trump's collection of media meltdowns has to be his infamous showdown with CNN's Jim Acosta.
That's not an invasion.
Honestly, I think you should let me run the country. You run CNN.
All right.
And if you did it well, your ratings would be much better.
If I may
Okay,
ask
that's
one other
enough.
question.
When Acosta pressed Trump about his inflammatory rhetoric regarding the migrant caravan, Trump exploded like a Diet Coke bottle that's been shaken for 4 years straight. "You are a rude, terrible person," he barked at Acosta, while his staff awkwardly shuffled around like children watching their drunk uncle ruin Thanksgiving dinner.
CNN should be ashamed of itself having you working for them. You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working for CNN. Go ahead.
In the midterms.
Here we go.
If you don't
go,
mind,
let's
Mr.
go.
President,
Come on.
that this caravan was an invasion. As you know,
I
Mr. President.
consider it to be an
As you know,
invasion.
Mr. President.
Again, Trump's media tantrums follow a predictable pattern. Journalist asks substantive question, Trump's face turns the color of an overripe tomato. Personal attack, uncomfortable laughter, zero actual answers. The statistics are staggering. Trump personally attacked reporters in roughly 30% of his press conferences. That's not a communication strategy. That's a man with the emotional regulation skills of a hangry 2-year-old who missed nap time. What's particularly telling is how Trump's hostility ramped up whenever COVID numbers looked bad. As negative coverage of his pandemic response increased, so did his personal attacks on journalists. It's almost like there's a direct correlation between how badly he was screwing up and how viciously he attacked the people pointing it out.
Elect.
Go ahead.
Mr. President-elect,
Go ahead.
since you are attacking
No,
our news
not you.
organization,
Not
can
you.
you give us a chance?
Your organization
You
is
are attacking
terrible.
our news.
Imagine that. And let's not pretend there wasn't a pattern to which reporters got the worst of Trump's wrath. Female reporters and journalists of color consistently received more aggressive and personal attacks. When they asked the exact same questions as their white male colleagues, suddenly those questions became nasty or stupid. Funny how that works. The true comedy comes when you watch these press briefings in succession. Trump's tactics were so predictable you could create a bingo card. Fake news in the center square, nobody knows who you are in one corner, your ratings are terrible in another, and that's a nasty question filling out the rest. Any White House correspondent could have won 5 times per briefing. When cornered on COVID testing data, Trump's escape routes were limited but well-traveled. Option 1, attack the reporter personally. Option 2, walk away from the podium like a kid taking his ball and going home. Option 3, ramble about something completely unrelated until everyone forgets what the original question was. Sometimes he'd hit the trifecta, creating press briefings so bizarre they seemed more suited for an SNL sketch than official White House communications. The pattern became so obvious that journalists started bringing receipts to these briefings, charts, data, and direct quotes, knowing Trump would try to deny reality. But even when faced with irrefutable evidence, Trump would simply dismiss the journalist as fake news and move on. It's like trying to play chess with a pigeon. No matter how well you play, the pigeon will knock over the pieces, poop on the board, and strut around like it won. So what's the real punchline here? When Trump's press events turned into comedy hours, Americans weren't exactly rolling with laughter. Polling data shows most people didn't appreciate his media smackdowns during a pandemic when straight answers actually mattered. While his supporters might have cheered these CNN takedowns, the average American was sitting at home thinking, could we maybe get back to the whole deadly virus thing? Trump's media battles weren't just entertainment. They were his escape hatch whenever facts became inconvenient. The real joke wasn't on CNN or Yahoo reporters. It was on a public desperate for actual information instead of ratings, obsession, and reporter roasts. In Trump's reality show presidency, accountability was the first contestant voted off the island. Turns out you're fired works better on TV than in a crisis.